Beyond Heat, 981fm.com, and iHeart Station.
Nancy, Smokehouse. It's the urban heat. Shout out to Coach Live.
Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just calling. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La. If you got something on your mind, you can call in, you can hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in, loud, oh, get a business to empower you, so that you can do every and anything that you want to. Kicking it with Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just calling. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La.
What's going on, beautiful people? Good evening. Good evening. What's going on, Sean Jordan? Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach La La La. Your favorite around the way therapist has made it into the building. Y'all know that you are tuned into the urban heat. Boston has Black radio, baby. I hope you have downloaded that iHeart Radio app so that you can never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever miss a show. So tonight is a beautiful day, a beautiful evening in Boston. I think we still in our 50s, 60s. It was very nice outside. I enjoyed the weather. Y'all know I'm a summer baby. My birthday's coming up July 10th, 1976. Yes, this is the year that I turned 50. Shout out to everybody who has celebrated Mother's Day, to all of the mothers. Tonight's show is for you. But as you know, not everybody is in a good place on Mother's Day. We got a lot of different reasons why. But I want to give a huge shout out to Ray Royale. His sing-along experience today at the City Winery was absolutely amazing. It was the Kings and Queens edition for Mother's Day. It was a brunch. And I was telling him today, I think he is the first Black male R&B artist from Boston to have a residency at the City Winery. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but I don't know of anyone else that has accomplished that. So I want to give a huge shout out to my radio brother. Some of y'all know we went to grade school together, the Quincy Dickmans. I've known Ronaldo for a long time. As y'all know him as Ray Royale. So I'm just super excited for him and happy for him. Today was an amazing experience. He did a tribute to everyone who has had a mom who's passed away. And I'll tell you, him and Angelina did their thing. Shout out to Angelina Hightower. And they sang I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm just super excited for him. So tonight we are going to be exploring the women who raised us. And, you know, I was thinking about this episode and thinking about how I would go about talking about this topic, because not all of us have really good relationships with our mothers. However, our mothers are our first teachers, and the way society has things set up, they're supposed to be there to love us, nurture us, teach us things, show us how to, manage our emotions, to really provide love, right, and care. And for a lot of us, that isn't the case, right? But tonight, we are going to honor the women who raised us. We're going to honor them in terms of love. We're also going to talk about healing those mother wounds and what they are, what they stand for, and also navigating grief. So tonight's episode is a love letter to our mothers, right? It's a truth-telling session. And it's a healing session, all healing circle, I would say. A healing circle all wrapped into one. This isn't just for mothers being celebrated, but it's for all of the women that are carrying invisible emotional labor You know what I mean by that? Remember that song Bad Lady by Erykah Badu? And she was talking about all of the things that we carry around with us. So I think a lot of us are carrying a lot. This idea of being strong is often a burden. And let me explain why. Because when do we get a chance to be soft? When do we get a chance to say it's hard, to cry? I had a client recently tell me that she's never cried in front of her children. And I don't know how many of you also can say that, maybe you've never cried and you never saw your mother cry. I know I definitely didn't see my mother do a lot of crying in front of us. And I think that set us up. I think that set us up to always feel as though we had to put on a mask. And little do you know, crying is part of self-care, right? Like I said this in a couple shows, so some of you've heard this before, but when a baby is born, the first signal of life is crying. And then as life proceeds, we start to stigmatize crying as a way of being weak. So crying is not a bad thing, y'all. We need to get those tears out. When we don't get the tears out, they have to go someplace. So for those that are irritated, overwhelmed, just often feeling as if they are dysregulated, you might need a good cry. Just my thoughts. But we're also going to be making space for grieving daughters. For some of us, our mothers are still alive, but they're not present, either due to sicknesses like dementia, Parkinson's, just different things that may have taken away their cognitive ability. Some of our mothers are still struggling with substance abuse, alcoholism. So although they're still alive, they're still not present. And we may have been waiting all our lives for them to finally show up and be the mothers that we always dreamed of and the mothers that we always needed. So this is also for the mothers that are healing while parenting. So I once had a gentleman that I met whose mother had gotten raped. And again, this might be a very triggering episode for you guys, but she kept him. And while she was navigating being a parent, she also had to deal with the fact that she was raped. So there's a lot of people that are walking around with a lot that they have to process while also showing up to be a parent, be a mother. For the bonus moms who have stepped in, because there's a lot of those, there's a lot of blended families out there, y'all. Contrary to popular belief, at this big age of 50, a lot of people already have kids. So you're stepping into families that are already designed and developed. And so you're a bonus mom and having to figure out how to navigate that with children who may or may not be open to their parent having a new partner. To the women who have become mothers, to everyone except themselves. So often we can be very mothering, but then we forget that we also need nurturing too. So tonight we hold space for joy and grief at the same time, because two things can be true. So you guys can also call in tonight, because you see I'm here by myself. But Mother's Day can be complicated. The feelings can be complicated. I had played a clip, and I probably should have put it into the show, but because I'm going to use it next week, I'm going to save it. But we can both be upset with our parents and also still say things like, but I love my parent though. Parents can have good intentions and still have harmed their kids, which is a tough topic to talk about, but it is often very, very true. Shout out to everybody who just tuned in. I saw Sean Jordan, Bella Ray. Thank you for the Mother's Day. Yolanda Hunt, thank you so much for the Mother's Day. So we want to think about how complicated the emotions are. For all of those that are biological mothers, shout out to you. Adoptive mothers, grieving mothers, mothers navigating infertility. Sorry, I was going to say infidelity, but shout out to y'all too, because that's going on out there too. Estranged mothers and daughters, aunties, grandmothers, godmothers, mentors, and women who contribute to communities. This holiday is a mix of emotions. Mother's Day can feel like a celebration for some and a trigger for others. So again, like I said, tonight we honor both. Shout out to Coach Stacy. She's going to be doing an event on the 17th at Sorrow and Line. I think it's from 2 to 4. Honor thy mother, and it's in that same vein that she's doing that event. A lot of us have complicated relationships with our mother. We often talk about fathers, the deadbeat dads, the absentee dads. We sometimes forget about the absentee moms, the mothers that don't show up. And so as much as we say Happy Mother's Day, and a lot of us are getting loved up on, there are some mothers out there and some individuals out there due to their mothers passing on or just not having great relationships that are torn. And I often feel like that myself. Yes, I'm a psychotherapist. Before I was a psychotherapist, I was just a Black girl in the city of Boston navigating the world. Didn't know she would one day become Coach La. And my relationship with my mother has always been challenging, but I have a wonderful son. I have a sister who's a mom. I have friends that are moms. I'm a godmother. So I still really enjoy Mother's Day. I love nurturing. I embrace it. But then there's this sadness. So today when we were at Ray Royale Experience, the Mother's Day sing-along, it was a lot of mixed emotions. There was women crying. There was some that were really happy and they were there with their daughters or their family. And there were some people who had to step away for a second and gather their emotions. So it got me thinking about mother wombs. And I've talked about this on my show before. And the reason why I bring it back up is that Mother's Day, Father's Day, holidays in general usually bring up a lot of emotions, especially around family. So what is a mother's womb? So it is anything that involves emotional neglect, conditional love, being parentified, criticism, shame, emotional inconsistency, and generational trauma. So that kind of encompasses a lot of us. And if you know what I'm talking about, feel free to call in tonight. Like I said, it's an open forum, 617-238-7111. So you can call in and you can also join me on the virtual couch as well. So a lot of us have navigated a mother's womb. And if you've ever felt like you didn't get what you needed in terms of, say, hugs, because that's a big one. A lot of people say, my mother never really hugged me. My mother never, told me that she was proud of me. I got criticism. I was told I was going to be, like my dad. I don't even want to say it out loud, but one of my clients and my friend has said, just some of the verbal abuse some of us have experienced from our moms. And I think it was tough love. I don't think it was always intended for us to have emotional scars behind it. The gentleman that I posted talked about his mother leaving him outside at 5 years old and him running behind a car when she went with her, a man. And he said, while he was telling the story, he said, I don't want to look like a bitch by crying. So for a lot of us, we have, made a space to say, you know what, I still love my mom, even though she wasn't there, or she wasn't present, or she didn't, hug me or kiss me, or all those type of things. And then I saw the movie Michael. I know a lot of people saw Michael, and they depicted his relationship with his mother in such a very kind, sweet way. Although his father was very controversial, it was a different time for parenting. And I grew up in the 70s, so born in 1976. Parenting was different back then. I would say our parents were really strict. My parents were very strict. My mother ran the house. She was very independent, very much a matriarch. And it was like, listen to your mother. That was my father's thing all the time. Even if my mother was wrong, listen to your mother. I had wanted my dad to stand up a lot more to my mom back then, now that I think about it. And my relationship with my father actually developed and became stronger as I got older and became a woman, because I resented that he sort of didn't put my mother in her place, because my mother was tough. She was tough. She was a tough lady. Very strict. I would beg to say she was mean. She was very mean. Which is probably why I'm so bubbly and sweet. I'm like the total opposite of her. She actually used to get on me about being so sweet and looking at the world in such a positive way. But it works to my advantage now, right? As being a therapist and everything else. Having a good spirit and being positive and optimistic is what my clients often need. So who knew that, that was a strength and wasn't something I needed to change. But back then, my mother definitely, I would say, tried to get me to stop being that way, for fear that I would be taken advantage of. And she wasn't totally wrong. So attachment theory is another concept that comes up for a lot of my clients. And you say attachment theory, well, what do you mean by that, coach? What we know from the research is that often how we show up in relationships, how we connect, especially to our intimate partners, has a lot to do with how we were raised and how we were nurtured or lack thereof. And his name is John Bowley, and the lady's name is Mary Ainsworth, and they came up with this concept called the attachment theory. And there's actually 4 of them, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to make sure I remember. So there's an anxious, insecure attachment style. And if you've ever engaged with someone who was very much needy, constantly needing validation and reminders that you were still there and that you still love them. I like to think of those, the people that you text them and they if you don't text right back, they're wondering if you still like them. Those kind of people. Then there's avoidant, fearful avoidant attachment styles. They often want to be connected, but are very scared at the same time. There are your hot, cold type of personalities in relationships. Then we have disorganized. These are individuals that a little bit of both, a little unpredictable. You kind of don't know how to take them on, off. Sometimes they want to be bothered, sometimes they don't. They're very disorganized in how they love. And then there's the secure attachment. Those are the individuals that can handle conflict, express their emotions, take accountability for their wrongs, are okay with giving space. They don't immediately jump to conclusions about that the relationship is over or done. They will walk away from a relationship before they will do something that would dishonor it, like cheating. They're going to talk to you about it. Those are the individuals that really challenge you in relationships to show up and to be your authentic self. So anybody else know about these attachment styles? Call in if you know what your attachment style is. You can call in again, 617-238-7111, and we can talk about that. Or you can also throw it in the chat. Do you know what your attachment style is? And if you do, how did you come to find out what it was? And at the end of the show, I'm going to put a link to a quiz. So if you don't know what your attachment style is, make sure you come back and check out the live and the chat to get the link to do the quiz so you can find out what your attachment style is. Now, why might it be important to know your attachment style? Because self-awareness is really important. And I think this is one of the ways we also understand how we were parented, and we can give our parents grace. Because before they became our moms, they were just women, they were just young women that were also just trying to figure it out. It doesn't really take much to become a mom, right? You just engage in some intercourse and you could end up pregnant. Deciding to actually mother is a whole big old choice. And I don't know that we're always ready or always know what to do. And I don't think we always know how it's going to impact our kids, right? Most of us grew up with getting spankings or getting whoopings. And some people still do that. But for a lot of us, we moved so far away from hitting our kids. I know I didn't like being hit. I always thought my mother could have taken a different route. And I thought too, I got hit too much, to be honest. I don't think I needed to be hit, but that was a different time, you know, and that's how we got disciplined. So, but I always wondered, like, couldn't you just talk to me? I didn't want to be beat. You know, can we just talk about this? And I don't know anybody else that felt that way. I don't think that your kids being afraid of getting hit changes them going out in the world and making mistakes. It doesn't change them breaking rules or being disrespectful. They may not do it in your face, but they'll still go do it. I would prefer for you to make a choice because you want to, because it's something where you want your own self-respect. It's something where you think about it first versus that you're just scared of me. So that's how I parented my son. And I think he turned out okay. I think I might have gave him all but one whooping in his life. And I only had to do it that one time, but maybe he just was a good kid. I mean, some of y'all might have just been AKA bad. I know we ain't supposed to use that word either, but you know, some of y'all might have been. Anyway. So the other piece to this is many adults unconsciously seek the nurturing that they didn't receive. If you think about when you're in a relationship with your partner and you need them to constantly reassure you, you need to constantly be reminded that you are pretty, that you are loved, that Leroy Porter. Let's see what Leroy's talking about tonight. Hold on, y'all. I've got to call her. Call her. Hello there. Welcome to Conversations with Coach La. Who's there?
Hi, Leroy.
Hey, Leroy. How you doing? You joining me on the virtual couch tonight. We're talking about Mother's Day.
I just want to say, you said people get with me. Was you a bad girl?
Well, I think I wasn't, but my mother might beg to differ. You know, I think all kids break rules and do things that they're not supposed to do. So I definitely did that. I definitely broke some rules. My biggest one was breaking curfew. What about you?
Huh?
What about you? Did you break rules?
I was trying to be a good little baby. I was trying to be a good little boy. You know? My mother said, "You a good boy." Yeah, I always wanted to go with my mother everywhere she went.
Mm-hmm. You know, you got to turn your radio down. You got feedback because you got your radio up.
Oh.
Yep, turn your radio down.
I get to go in the other room.
Okay. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I was a bad girl. I definitely wouldn't say that, but I definitely had to be disciplined. I would say that. One of the biggest things that got me in trouble, Leroy, was telling house business.
What?
Did you hear me?
No, it was what?
I said telling house business. Things that wasn't supposed to be told to nobody and they're supposed to stay in your house.
Oh, I see.
Yep. That was that and breaking curfew, not being home on time.
Oh yeah, we all had curfew.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what?
But I don't think that justified me getting a beating though. I think they could have just talked to me.
I got a whooping because I wanted to go with my mom.
Wait, you got a whooping because you wanted? You said you got a whooping because you wanted to go with your mother?
I wanted to be with her. Yeah. I got a whooping because I couldn't. She wanted me to stay home.
Oh, wow.
That's all.
Did you?
I wasn't staying home.
Did you agree with that?
Well, I look back and see, I'm supposed to stay home. She says that you can't go. So that's okay. Like, our life has changed anyway. You know how that is. When you get to grow up, things are different.
Yes, it was a different time. Now, what year were you born, Leroy?
I can't tell you the year. You
don't want to tell your age? Was you born in
the time I was doing military service.
Was you born in the 1960s?
No, in the 50s.
1950s. Yeah, 1950s was a different time. You part of the baby.
Huh?
I said you're part of the baby boomers.
No, you said you were born in 1976, right?
Yes.
You said 76. So I was born in 1966, but in 57. So check it out. You was born in 76. I was doing a lot of things at that age. I was just a young little man.
Yeah, I bet you was doing a lot of things. I bet you were doing a lot of things.
I need therapy. I need to see a doctor now. Nope, I don't need no medicine. All I want to do is get my head mind right. We get older. We do get older. But some things, some medicine ain't good enough for everybody. And I tell you,
so
it don't matter how many people.
Okay, say that again. You said it doesn't what?
You got to, I don't know, I know you have to eat right. I just saw you said something about how you was treated, everybody was treated. The kids get wisdom from their parents. And they don't do that no more today because those really, if the kids listen to their parents, they wouldn't have to get them with them. Mothers and fathers ain't gonna beat their children. Huh?
I said, well, you know, the nature of a child's development is that they're going to challenge authority. You know, kids are going to have questions, right? They're going to be curious. It's like popping a baby because they're putting things in their mouth, right? Like, I know we do that, but that's part of what a child is going to do. You can just, you know, take.
As a little baby, I was to go jump into a pool and can't see the water, and knowing I can't swim.
You know,
and now if I would have jumped in that water, I probably wouldn't be here today.
And you're right, but the thing is that most children don't have the same fears that we have as adults, so they don't understand danger the way we understand danger. But that doesn't make them bad. That just is because that's what kids do. We are fearless. We're fearless when we're children.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Oh, Sean Jordan is trying to tell me that I was fresh. I don't know if that's towards Cynthia or Sebrew or that is towards me, Sean. But I definitely have been outspoken. I think a lot of people would agree. I'm the oldest too. And I think when you're the oldest, there's a lot of pressure for you to be more mature. And I think we do get parentified. So on the one hand, we're kids, but on the other hand, in the era I grew up in, you were also supposed to be like in charge when your parent wasn't there. So to a certain extent, I had to make decisions, and I was very aware and almost like a little adult. But then at the same token, I was supposed to stay in a child's place. So it was an interesting position to find myself in. I was going to the grocery store. I was helping pay bills. I was picking up my siblings from school. You know, I was doing a lot of things. I worked. You know, at 14, I had a job.
Yeah, that's good. At 14, you had a job. I had a job too at 14. I was working.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a little fella, I was just wanting to make it on my own too.
Mm-hmm.
I even went to ride up the bus. The bus cost 10 cents to the dime. So the bus was actually free. The bus was so free, I kept riding the bus by myself. Nobody knew where I was at. Then one day I went to get to that bus, the man said, "You gotta pay." So I said, "Oh my God." I had to left the bus to go back down the road. So 5, 10 cents. And still I never rode it anymore. But anyway, yeah.
What bus was you riding? Leroy, which bus? Which bus?
The MBTA.
The MBTA. What? The 28?
No, the 16.
The 16. Okay. So for all those that don't know, we're talking about the MBTA services. That's the transit authority here in Massachusetts. So I was on the 28, the 23. I didn't really ride the 16. That was over in that's Phil's Corner, right?
Yeah, Phil's Corner.
Yeah. Well, all right, Leroy. I thank you for calling in tonight. I know you usually try to call me, but I usually am not taking phone calls. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna let the phone line stay open for somebody else that might want to call.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you, Leroy.
family. So, it's a blessing again.
I
One day I'll
appreciate
come
you.
there. My parents told me to say hi to everybody there.
Yes, I miss Mark dearly.
He made sure that I talked to everyone at the station. So I try to make a way there.
Oh,
Everybody that y'all know Mark, y'all is my best friend as well.
oh. Well, I appreciate you, Leroy. Talk to you soon.
But I keep saying the same. I'm gonna make a song about you, Coach. La, la, la,
Oh, God. Bye, Leroy.
la, la, la.
All right, y'all. That was Leroy. He calls me every night, but I usually don't answer his phone call, so I had to let him get through tonight. Thank you, Sarada. I appreciate you. Cynthia, the 28 bus wasn't in existence when Leroy was around, but it was around when I was taking the bus. I took the 28. So tonight's conversation, everybody, tonight's virtual couch is all about Mother's Day. So shout out again to everybody who is a mom, a bonus mom, a godmother, a grandmother, a community member that's nurturing the community. We really want to, just give space for everyone who's lost their mom. I also want to just send you love and light as you are navigating Mother's Day, because I know it can be both a joyous day and also a sad day for many of us. So far we've talked about mother wombs, and a lot of people have asked me about that and how that plays into attachment style. So what we know is, if you've experienced a mother womb, again, for those that are just tuning in, a mother's womb is anything that's an emotional neglect. It's conditional love. I call that like the transactional love. Like, if you do everything you're supposed to do, then you'll get a hug and you'll be loved. I think that we need to have space that even if you break a rule, you can still be loved up on, right? I think that you can still have something taken away. You can be put on punishment. I'm not a big fan of us putting hands on our kids. I think it can send very mixed messages, especially as we're navigating things like domestic violence for a lot of people, because they grew up in households where they were hit or they got whoopings. It's hard for them to distinguish that when their partner hits them, that's not love. And I know for some of y'all, you'll be like, what are you talking about? Go do your own research. It correlates, right? So often we don't realize that we have a huge problem, especially in our community, with domestic violence. And we're trying to figure out how to solve it, how to stop it. It is generational. Usually you'll find that if a guy is being abusive, he probably saw it. His father might have been that way, and it gets passed down. So a lot of times it stems from these mother wombs, and it stems from how you were raised and how discipline was handled, how conflict was handled. And so it's difficult to understand, okay, well, my partner's doing something I don't like. I shouldn't be emotionally or physically abusive, right? So just think about that. I'll give you something to cry for, or stop crying and you're getting beat. Like, we said some really interesting things when we were when I used to get whoopings, right? This is gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you. I'll give you something to cry for. Well, you are giving me something to cry for. That's why I'm crying. So what's the impact of these mother wombs? They can impact your romantic relationships. It can impact how you set boundaries. It can impact your self-worth. It impacts emotional regulation, people pleasing, and perfectionism, which was something that I was really guilty of early on in my life, is that I was a huge people pleaser. I'm a recovered one now. And perfectionism, where, you're never really quite satisfied. You don't really give yourself space to make mistakes. Mistakes are like the end of the world versus you looking at them as learning opportunities. And in life, we are going to make mistakes, right? At some point, you always start off as a learner. You don't always do everything right. But a lot of times, as Leroy said, if you listen to your parents, you wouldn't have to, you wouldn't get spankings. You wouldn't get a whooping. And it's not always that your kids are not listening to you. At some point, they are going to want to exert their personalities, and they're going to want to try limits. Each one of us have done it too, right? And I think about a lot of my clients that have anxious attachment styles. They have performance anxiety. They have difficulty expressing their feelings. A lot of them, once we trace it back, have had either strict parents or were physically hit, and they really never had an opportunity to express their emotions and their feelings. They weren't taught how to do that. And so whenever they're faced with conflict, they have a visceral effect that dysregulates them, right? Their emotion, they're not able to calm down, right? They don't know how to actually self-soothe. And so I think a lot of these things are connected in terms of how we show up. And again, this is not to shame or blame our moms, right? But it also allows you to understand the impact of it. So maybe you can change it as you move forward in terms of how you parent. And more than likely, your parent is only doing what they learned as well. So this stuff is generational. We learn it and it gets passed down. There's a great story somebody had told me once about this topic, right? And it was around cooking. So they were cooking a ham. They cooked the ham every year. And when they made the ham, they would cut the ends of the ham off. And one of the granddaughters eventually asked about why the ham was cut off on both sides. And pretty much the family respond, that's just how your grandmother did it. And they were like, well, she was like, but why? Why did she do it like that? And they're like, that's just how we do it. Just cut the ends of the ham off. Why do you want to keep asking why? You don't need to know why. That's just how we do it. And then finally, one of the family members said, why don't you ask your grandmother? And so she asked her grandmother, she said, Grandma, when we make the ham, why do we cut the ends of the ham off? And her grandmother laughed and she said, that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me. She said, I only cut the ends off so it could fit in the pan. The pan was too small. That's why I did it. So you don't have to cut the ends of the ham off. They were making up all of these reasons that it made the ham more juicy and all of these different scenarios, but without asking why, like, why do we do what we do? We just keep doing it without understanding the context of why that was necessary at that point in time, but it may not be necessary anymore. So I say all of that to say, the more you understand where these habits and where these things come from and how it impacts you, is not so you can be resentful towards your mother, but to gain more understanding and also to decide, what do you want to change, if anything, about how you show up and what you do? So mother's wounds is real. A lot of us have them. In therapy with my clients, this is something that comes up as they start talking about their childhoods. Even though everybody always tells me, I don't want to talk about my childhood. All I want to do is learn how to communicate with my husband better. We have a hard time talking to each other, and we want to learn some strategies on how to communicate. One of the big ones is not letting one person speak without cutting them off or taking up all the airspace. It's just so giving each other an opportunity and actually listening to what the other person says, which we talked about last week. Active listening. A lot of us never learned how to do that. Your parents would ask you a question and you couldn't express yourself. They would tell you, be quiet. I don't want to hear anything you have to say. So a lot of us didn't learn how to articulate our needs, our wants, our non-negotiables, because we didn't learn how. So when you now get in these relationships, it can be really hard to do that without, listen, Sean, if you don't cut it out, you gotta forgive our listeners on here talking about I had a potty mouth. I actually did not. But then again, I do know how to swear very well, but I learned it. I learned it from all the adults around me. All my aunties, my mother, they swear a lot, although I couldn't swear. So, healing doesn't always mean blaming your mother, right? Sometimes it means understanding her humanity while protecting your peace. I'm going to say that again. Healing doesn't always mean blaming your mother. Sometimes it means understanding her humanity while protecting your peace. So a lot of times we don't like to talk about the things our parents could have possibly done because, one, a lot of our parents are in denial. They have never taken accountability or apologized for any of the things that they may or may not have done wrong. If you have a parent that has done that, you are blessed. A lot of my clients, that's all they really want. They just want their parent to just say sorry, to admit that, they didn't handle a particular situation well. Sometimes you got to give that to yourself and accept the parent that you have, and also grieve the parent that you always wanted or that you'll never receive, right? And so Mother's Day can be tough because some of our parents are gone and we never got a chance to have those conversations, to ask the whys, to get the sorries, to get the hugs. For some of us, our parent passed away while we were estranged, and we didn't even get a chance to really make amends. Some of us, our parents weren't in our mother wasn't in our life, either because of adoption. Maybe we, moved in with our family, extended family. They just weren't there. And then they pass away. So it's like, on the one hand, you were hoping at some point that you would have a better relationship, and now they're gone. So Mother's Day can be really, really tough, man. It can be can be overwhelming. And for a lot of us, this is a tough day. And I send lots of love to those that are trying to navigate how best to show up for a parent that didn't show up for you, that wasn't present, and still at the same token may be expecting, may feel entitled. We had this thing about do as I say, not as I do. Elders expecting respect just because of proximity, because they are a parent, but they don't do things that are deserving of respect. And a lot of us grew up watching those type of things and having to accept it. Some of my clients, the first people to gaslight them were their parents, their mother. If you grew up in a household like that, again, this may be triggering. Say your father was drinking and they would tell you, oh, he's just sleeping. That you had a parent that was incarcerated, they would tell you that he was on a vacation. So sometimes you did not get the truth told to you about what was really happening. And that in itself makes you question your reality as a child, but also you have trust issues as an adult. So that's how mother wounds and attachment styles play into our relationships, and why it's important to process it and to do some self-discovery. If these are any of your challenges, a therapist can be really helpful in helping identify that. Again, we have assessments and different things that we can do to help you identify what your attachment style is and how that may or may not be impacting your relationships. So I have a question for you guys, everybody that's tuning in. Once again, you guys are listening to Conversations with Coach La La La, your favorite around the way therapist, right here on Urban Heat, Boston Has Black Radio. And we're talking about Mother's Day, maybe not in the way you thought I would talk about it, but the pros and cons, the goods, the bads, and the uglies, right? But what did you need? What does your inner child need, right? What did you always want in terms of emotional support in childhood that you never got? Have you ever thought about that? What did you need emotionally growing up, but it never showed up for you, and that you're still seeking in your adult relationships? Anybody brave enough to call in and have this conversation with me? I can probably take a few more calls before I leave up out of here. 617-238-7111. If you want to talk about Mother's Day, you want to talk about your mother wounds, if you want to just get on the virtual couch and express your feelings tonight, you have the opportunity. This is a solo show. It's an open show for everybody and anybody who wants to sit down and have a conversation with me. So, what did you need emotionally growing up that you're still looking for in your adult relationships now? I invite y'all to write about that, to journal about it. And if you need a therapist, shameless plug, I do have 2 clinicians on my team, or you can actually decide to come and sit with me on a one-on-one. Oh, Leroy, we already talked to Leroy. We ain't gonna talk to Leroy again. Leroy's the only one that wants to talk to me tonight on the virtual couch. He gonna call back multiple times. Call back later, Leroy. I'm gonna have to make a jingle for you, like call Tyrone, call Leroy. No, actually, no, don't call Leroy. So, motherhood and identity loss. For some of us, we're caregivers, and we're caring for our parents, our mothers, and the tables have turned. And what we know is that caregivers are some of the people who really, really need support. Empathy fatigue is real. Burnout is real. And there's a lot of women that are losing themselves because they are now caregivers, and they are putting their lives on hold to step in and take care of parents that sometimes were not present for them emotionally, that were not physically present, and now the obligation of caring for their elderly parents is on them to do. And that's a real thing, especially again at this big age. A lot of us are moving into our 50s and our parents are getting older, and that's a tough place to be in. And a lot of us are stepping into that role because we feel like we're obligated to do so. And some of us aren't. And I think it's a lot of shame and guilt around it, a lot of societal pressure. You know, don't put your mom in a nursing home. Oh, somebody's calling. Let's see who this is. Hold on, y'all. We got another caller. Good evening. Welcome to the virtual couch with Coach La La La. Who's there?
Good evening, Coach La La La.
Good evening. Is this C Brew?
Sometimes I am.
Sometimes you are. So tonight, who am I talking to? I'm talking to...
Tonight you're talking to Cynthia.
Cynthia. Well, good evening, Cynthia. Thank you for joining me on the virtual couch. You know, tonight we're talking about Mother's Day, you know, and how the feelings can be very, very complicated, and the mother's wombs. So what's your take on this? What are some of the things that have come up for you during tonight's virtual couch?
Interestingly enough, I feel that I got all that I needed from both my mom and my dad. The only thing that I always questioned was, why was my brother the favorite for my mama? But as I got older, I've learned that there's different relationships that moms have with their sons and daughters have with their dads, because I was truly a daddy's girl, and I see that my brother was definitely a mama's boy. Not to the point where, you know, people like, oh, you know, in a negative way, but he was 37. I need to turn that down. He was definitely her favorite. Definitely her favorite. And I think that's the only thing that, for me as a child growing up, I used to, you know, have feelings about that.
So may I ask, what made you feel like your brother was her favorite?
Because he could get away with stuff that I couldn't get away with, like, stuff that I got in trouble for, he could do and he wouldn't get in trouble for. But then it was the same for my dad. Like, I would do stuff and my dad would be okay with me doing it. But if my brother did it, then, you know, he would get in trouble with my dad. So it's kind of back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know.
Do you think that's because of the gender roles? Like, certain things girls are not supposed to do. So your mother was hard on you because she was trying to make sure you were cultivated in a certain way as a young lady?
Possibly.
Yeah. I wonder about that too, because I feel like they're often harder on us girls than they are on the boys in general. I feel like boys get away with a lot, and the girls they were just strict with us in terms of how we were supposed to show up and how we were supposed to behave.
You know, I've never looked at it or thought about it from that angle, so maybe that I might need to deep dive into that and see, you know, where that brings me.
Yeah, definitely. That might definitely be a perspective, because I do feel like boys were able to do a lot and get away with a lot. And there was just a lot of strict rules in terms of how I could move. But I was also the oldest, and I always wanted to be a boy, because I felt like if I had been a boy, I would have been able to do what I wanted to do. But I'm also, as I look back, because that was this 80s and the 90s, it was hard for a lot of Black boys in Boston around that time.
Right.
So it was probably better that I was a girl. I don't know what I would have got myself into if I had been a boy.
I never wanted to be a boy.
And the only reason why I feel like I wanted that because I had 5 other siblings that were younger than me. And at the time, it was me. I had a sister and I had 2 brothers. So I just felt like to protect them, it would have been better if I had been a boy.
Okay.
That was really where that came from, especially since I had 2 younger brothers. And there was one time that I went to pick them up from the Roxbury YMCA and I got robbed. I got robbed with a knife and they were with me. I think I was about 14 or 15. And I remember, and I was like, and my father was like, there wouldn't have been nothing you could do different if you would have been a boy, except possibly be dead.
Well,
So, but yeah, the things you think when you're younger. Now it wouldn't change it. I love being a girl. I love being a girl.
And it's another difference between you and I. You were the oldest, and I'm the baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the brat. Be quiet, Sean, because you're listening.
Yeah, Sean Jordan has been out of control tonight in the chat. I was trying to figure out, was he talking about you or I?
He was talking to me.
Yeah, because I'm catching it. I'm like, that can't be towards me, calling me fresh and calling me a potty mouth. I said,
because I had put a comment in, that one of the things that used to aggravate the heck out of me or puzzle me the most was do as I say, not as I do. And then I would get in trouble for cursing, but yet every other word out of my parents' mouth was a curse word.
That part. That's so true. Yes, I remember my sister. So back then, not so much now, but back then it seemed like everybody's parents smoked Newport. My mother smoked Salem 100s and my father smoked Newports. And my sister called herself going to smoke a cigarette. And I remember he made her smoke a whole pack, like he smoked one after another. And, I don't know if she got through the whole pack, but that's how I remember it. That might be an exaggeration, but all I know is I never smoked a cigarette. She never smoked a cigarette. So the do as I say, not as I do works in some circumstances, but a lot of people follow right behind their parents doing stuff that's awful, Right. So you think about, drug usage, alcoholism. A lot of times, a lot of us grew up seeing that and still decide to go and give it a shot. So that's no rhyme or reason to that, but yeah. Tonight's virtual couch is really to give love to all of us that are caring for our parents, our mothers, both, bonus moms, aunties, and godmothers. There's so many of us that are in the role of mom and not necessarily that they're our biological children. And it's needed. Some of us are also stepping in to fill in the voids of those who didn't have mothers and doing corrective mothering. But today was a tough day. I saw a lot of emotions today. I was going to skip tonight's show, but I realized that a lot of people are in different spaces about Mother's Day. And so I just wanted to give some love to them.
I saw a lot of emotions at Ray's show today as well, different parts of the show, different people had different emotions, and, a couple of people I saw, break down and cry, and, I saw people in the audience, people that didn't even know each other, walking up and giving people hugs that were needed, and I thought that was really special and definitely needed today for some, so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I want everybody, because I know I can't believe it. My show's almost done, y'all. I got 6 more minutes. So it's okay to have these mixed emotions. And I really invite you to sort of take a minute and think about, did you feel emotionally safe expressing your feelings? Because what I'm finding is that a lot of individuals that have the mother wombs and have these conflictual relationships with their mother really haven't processed it. And it shows up in different spaces. It can show up with your partner, it can show up with your kids, it can show up in, your mental health. But I find that today was a good a good example. Like the number of people that were crying, a lot of people was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, it's okay to, to cry and to miss your mom or to be in that space. It's okay. You don't have to mask it. And I think, being able to even say, I'm still angry, I'm sad, I'm frustrated. It's okay. It's all right, y'all. It's okay to not be okay today if that's where you're at. There's also people out there that always wanted to be a mom and still haven't been able to have that happen in their life, and they're grieving that, or they lost a child, and so they're grieving that. So there's just a lot of it's a lot going on today, and it definitely felt heavy in general, for a lot of individuals.
The show was needed tonight, and your listeners appreciate you. And I know we've had this conversation before that even though you might not see them on the live, they're listening, whether it's on the iHeart or they're tuning in the next day. Your show is definitely needed. So continue doing what you were doing, sister. We appreciate you. I love you. I enjoyed seeing you today, and I'm going to wish you another day. And I'm going to hang up so you can say your last few minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Love you.
Love Bye-bye. You right back. Thank you so much for calling in. Have a good night.
You too, honey. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's Miss Cynthia, Boston's finest. She's out there making sure that our streets stay safe. Appreciate you, Miss Cynthia. Thank you, Mr. Leroy, Valerie, Sean Jordan, Rosie. What's going on, Chicago, Rosie? Thank you for tuning in. Kim Bellinger. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Lois, thank you for tuning in and participating in this virtual couch. Shout out to DJ Dex today. I know they cheated you today, brother. You did a great job. You should have won. I know Slayer got all of the people cheering for him like the Apollo, but it was a great, great experience. They're going to be here starting May 31st. The R&D Lounge is going to be coming on from 8 to 10 right on Sundays. So you guys make sure you check that out. It's going to be a new show here on Urban Heat with DJ Dex and Ray Royale. I'm looking forward to that show. So yes, in closing, everybody, we talk about Coach's Corner, and when I usually have people come on, we talk about Coach's Corner, a moment to reflect and gather key takeaways that leave you with something to carry forward on your journey this week. So I want you guys to really check in, right? To check in with yourself. As I asked you earlier, what did you need emotionally growing up? If you're in a relationship, if you're married, think about this question. Even if you have adult children, it's still okay to circle back, because sometimes you can repair those childhood wounds, those mother wounds, by having these deep conversations with your adult children. Sometimes just going and apologizing and exploring with them, hey, you probably needed this. I'm sorry I couldn't give you that when you were growing. I didn't know how to do it, but I apologize. I can see that now. What do you need now? Let's learn together. A healed mother doesn't have to be perfect, She just has to be emotionally aware enough to stop passing down unresolved pain. I'm going to say that again. A healed mother doesn't have to be perfect. She just has to be emotionally aware enough to stop passing down unresolved pain. It is our responsibility, to get the treatment and to get what we need to heal. It's not your fault if you went through these mother wounds, but now that you know it exists, it is your responsibility to figure out how to heal yourself and what you need to heal. And I invite everyone to do so, right? You're allowed to miss someone and still smile today. It's okay to have both joy and sadness coexist. And last but not least, I want you to just know that you deserve love, softness, protection, and the patience that you freely give to others. And yeah, I think that about does it for me tonight, y'all. I want you guys to make sure you're betting on yourself. Healing generations starts when somebody becomes emotionally courageous enough to do things differently. And that's the bet on self move for tonight. And that's also what therapy means to me, is about healing generations. We are the antibiotics in our families and in our communities. And we can heal the world, y'all, just by how we show up and being different. Hold on.
We are the Urban Heat. Expect the unexpected. Unorthodox radio from Boston and beyond. Heat981fm.com and iHeartStation.
Yes, yes, yes. That's my sign that it's time to get out of here. Shout out to Mark Harris. I know you're resting in heavenly peace up there. Miss you so much, Mark. But that's my final say, guys. You know, we have the ability to be the change we want to see in the world. Healing generation starts when somebody becomes emotionally courageous enough to do things differently. We don't got to keep being the same, and we don't got to keep doing what we were taught to do. We can break these generational curses one bet on self moment at a time. I hope y'all enjoyed tonight's show. Next week, make sure you tune back in. I got Rico, the Haitian refugee, and we're going to be talking about the open letter from a single black man. We're going to talk about Kevin Samuels. Why was he so controversial and popular at the same time? You don't want to miss it. We're going to talk about dating. I can't wait to have this conversation with Rico. That's going to be a hot virtual couch. So make sure you guys turn on your notifications, tune in next week, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow to the Morning Cafe. It's going to be all kinds of shenanigans going on. So I will be in the chat. And yeah, Cynthia, don't say that. Dex, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, I love you and Slayer. Y'all both won. Y'all both won in my book. Good night, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day to all those that celebrated it, and have a great week. And I will see you back on the virtual couch next week. Thank you, Tony Bone. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in. Instagram, I see y'all. Neeks Way, I see you. DJ Dex, I see you. Black Like Crystal, I see you. Thank y'all for tuning in. See you next week. Good night.